Welcome back to Editors Roundtable. We have a guest joining us now. Harsha Upadhyaya is CIO Equity at Kotak Mutual Fund. Harsha, good evening. Thanks a lot for joining us. What did you make of the kind of volatility, I would say the kind of violence that we had in the market, ending the week flat, but within that there were so many moves?
Good evening, Anuj. You are right. I think the volatility is here to stay. There are many macro headwinds, as we have discussed in the past, which are in front of everyone's eyes. So to that extent, I think every now and then you will see choppiness in the market. And also the fact that the latest up move that we saw in the market was entirely liquidity driven and based on valuation expansion rather than earnings upgrades. So to that extent, at every higher level, there will be some nervousness and some profit booking, I guess. So I think one should be ready for that kind of volatility even going ahead.
Harsha, the view from Kotak has been cautious for some time now, right? About almost one and a half months or so. With Nilesh with us, others as well. You've sounded cautious as well. Do you have a view that maybe markets need to settle slightly lower at an aggregate level?
Not exactly. I mean, if it goes down and it gives an opportunity to investors to enter at lower valuation levels, then it will be good. But I think even if it consolidates at around current levels for some more time, until we start seeing some kind of stability in earnings, that will be good for markets. Because if you look back and see where markets were in the month of June, it was around 15,000 to 15,500 Nifty. And at that point of time, the valuations were lower than fair range of valuations on a long-term basis. But with the sharp 15% up move that we have seen, which has not been supported by earnings upgrades, in fact, there has been a marginal downgrade during the June quarter earnings season. Given that valuations have actually moved again back over the fair range of valuation. So to that extent, I would say that a bit of consolidation would help the markets.
Harsha, good evening and thanks for joining in. So the domestic market has picked up in a big way, right? I mean, I just looked at the Ganpati celebrations this time around and the mammoth scale at which it happened. One just wonders how the festive season will pan out as we head into Diwali. People are just out there traveling, shopping. Do you think that this whole basket, whether it's autos, whether it's consumption, FMCG, you think you'll continue to see outsized gains for the rest of the year?
In terms of demand, we clearly believe that the festive season is going to be very, very strong across the board, whether it's discretionary, non-discretionary. But in terms of stock performance, we are more positive on autos, for example, where there has not been much of a performance for the last several years for various reasons. And now everything seems to be falling in place for that sector. And the ownership is also not as high as what we would have seen historically for the auto sector. Given all this and the fact that valuations are reasonable, we should see this sector outperforming. While consumer durables could also have very good demand coming in the festive season, but valuations are not as supportive as that would be for auto, for example. So to that extent, one has to look at it in a different way.
Right. Taking Sonia's point further, while people are celebrating, consuming a lot, etc., what they're not doing, Harsha, is going to the movies. Because I was just looking at some data. July box office collections were 270 crores, a paltry 270 crores. And in August, that number was half. Pre-pandemic, 40% of Bollywood movies were a success. And that number post-pandemic is just 7%. PVR Inox, while they've rallied from the lows, from the highs, they've corrected just around 15-20%. What are your thoughts on these stocks?
Mangalam, clearly, I think there has been a change in viewer behavior. I think people have preferred to watch it on devices, on OTT platforms, rather than actually going to the movie theaters. Maybe a little bit of still hesitation because COVID is still around and people are not comfortable going in crowded areas, etc. There could be multiple reasons. But clearly, I think the traditional theater business has taken a hit. We'll have to wait and watch whether it's a completely structural one or it's just a cyclical blip because of the COVID and other factors. Over the next few quarters, I think we'll see clear signs about one way or the other.
Okay. Now, Harsha, one thing which stands out is that despite the kind of volatility in the market and especially the global market, the mid-cap market is doing remarkably well. It's been quite resilient. Do you get a bit nervous looking at the way some of these stocks have started to move off late? Some of the B group stocks and maybe even lower quality stocks, the way they moved this week, does that make you nervous, or do you think it's par for the course?
Anuj, it always happens, right? Whenever markets start to move up, you will see some of the lower run stocks, whether in mid caps or in small caps, also tend to move up. All of them may not have fundamental backing, but they do move up quite significantly in those periods. So one has to be cautious, especially after seeing 15% kind of a sharp up move. One has to really focus on companies which have a reasonable strength in terms of earnings, in terms of going forward, how they will pan out. And where the valuations are. I think you can't really look at mid caps or small caps as a homogeneous basket and take those calls. You will have to look at each business, evaluate, and then make your portfolio. And that's what will help.
Okay, Harsha, we have run out of time, but thanks a lot for stopping by and speaking to us on this edition of Editors Roundtable. With that, it's a wrap. But you know what? I was just listening to Harsha saying that viewer behavior is changing. Yeah. Of course, I've been sitting at home. I haven't gone to a theatre, but there's a movie coming up next week, right? Brahmastra.
I'm excited for that.
I'm excited for that.
But that's next weekend. What about this weekend? This weekend, there's so much sporting action lined up.
Yeah.
You know, there's US Open going on. And on Sunday, I'm telling you, there's United versus Arsenal.
So, my husband has already told me on Sunday, there's nowhere we're going. Those 2-3 hours, we're going to be sitting right in front of the television. So, our Sunday's cut out.
Sonia keeps telling me about trolling and all, and how, at times we are mean to each other. The meanest thing I had done was I had gone to Sonia's home for a party wearing United shirt.
And he was allowed in, by the way.
He was allowed in. So that is as mean. Prashant, your thoughts?
Absolutely. My plan is to go visit Lal Bagh Cha Raja.
Same here. I think that's going to take the entire weekend because that's how long the lines are.
Wear your masks, guys. Wear your masks, all right? And enjoy the festivities, of course. And you folks, join us yet again Monday morning, bright and early. Until then, enjoy your weekend.